بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Um, so we were on the hadith al-udhunani min al-ra's, and I believe we had found the hadith, I believe, and we started drawing doing the diagram. Did we start?
Yes, we did.
So did we have our first names? Can you remember? I don't know what we had last week.
So Abi Umama.
Okay.
And then after Abu Umama, it is Shahr bin Hushab.
Shahr ibn Hawshab. Okay.
After Shahr bin Hushab. Then Sinan ibn Rabi'ah. There was a...
Oh yeah, there's a difference there. Abi or Ibn, yeah, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me just bring this up now. Let me try I can type this as you're going. A second. Okay. So Abi Umama. Abi Umama marfu'an. And I mentioned last week that I could put this at the top because it's all the same. If it wasn't all the same, then I couldn't put it at the top. If there was actually ikhtilaf, some people narrating it from marfu' and some people not, then it's a problem. Okay, so Aban, if you could start looking up Shahr ibn Hawshab.
Okay.
Shahr ibn Hawshab. Okay, and then from him, who's narrating?
Sinan ibn Rabi'ah.
Sinan ibn
Slash Abi
slash
Rabi'ah.
Rabi'a. Rabi'a. Okay, and from him,
Hamad ibn Zayd.
Hamad ibn Zayd. Okay, great. So Hamad ibn Zayd should be in our. So I mean, the two of them, Shahr ibn Hawshab. These are mukthirin, right? So we should know about these. Sinan ibn Abi, it's not a big deal, but we should know. We should have a little thing. Hamad ibn Zayd, super amazing. Again, from him, various people. Right. So this is the hadith. The hadith is so if you traveled the world at that time, or in our time, the hadith is Hamad ibn Zayd an Sinan ibn Rabi'a an Shahr ibn Hawshab an Abi Umama al-Udhunani min Ra's marfu'an. That's the hadith. Right? Why do we say that's the hadith or that's the tag or that's the chain? Because that's the madar, right? So you're going to say, Ibn Abi Hatim will say, I asked my father about the hadith so and so from so and so and so and so. Like, why are you mentioning just those names? Or why would you mention it mu'allaqan? Why would you mention it without the chain back to Hamad ibn Zayd? Because it doesn't really matter. It's academic. It's kind of pointless at that time, right? As you get into the third, into the fourth, into the fifth, into the sixth, like, well, that's It's already widespread in the beginning. Hamad ibn Zayd, I believe, is the beginning of the um, second century, or maybe the end of the first century. So it's like khalas, it's widespread already. Okay. So Zafar, if you can start looking at um, um, Hamad ibn Zayd, please. And I'm going to
Okay.
look up Sinan ibn Abi Rabi'a. So again, where am I going to look? Will Tuhfat al-Ashraf, will it tell me about the narrator and how good he is and how bad he is? And
If you just want to overall look at Ibn Hajar's opinion, will go to Tuhfatul Ashraf. But if we want more depth and this will go to Tahzib al-Tahdhib.
right, so one is going to give me the madar, the other one is going to give me the details of that narrator. Right, so Tuhfat al-Ashraf, it will not tell me anything about the narrator. Right. It might be useful in that I find a chain in there where so and so does narrate from so and so, maybe. But now I'm looking at the hukm on the narrator, so I need to look on Kutub al-Rijal, right? So Tuhfat al-Ashraf is a unique book in that it shows me those things. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do that all by myself by looking at the books themselves, looking at the 6 books themselves. So I'm now going to limit myself to Tuhfat Tahdhib al-Tahdhib just for a training process to make it easier for me. And I'm not going to use تقريب التهذيب. Zafar, why I'm not going to use تقريب التهذيب?
It's to summarize.
It's too summarized, right? It's not going to give me the picture that I want. I want more details, right? Okay, and why am I using a book and not using this search engine?
So that you get used to the process and sometimes you'll come across extra information adjacent to what we're looking for, which will be useful.
So it's fine to use it, but if you can't do this, there's a big problem. سميت We'll pause the share for a bit. So look at him. Sinan ibn Rabi'a al-Bahili. This is not, yes, this is him. This is he, right? So what do we see? What is it? What do we see right in the beginning? Khadal taqaf.
So it's in Bukhari, Dawud, Tirmidhi, and Ibn Majah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about his name?
Sinan, okay, here it's Ibn Rabi'a.
Okay, and then
Then Abu Rabi al-Basri.
yeah. So how is he both? How could you be the son of Rabi'a and the father of Rabi'a? Could the grandson and the grandfather have the same name?
Possible.
Yeah, right? So then it's not actually an ikhtilaf at all. Okay. So anyway, he's in Kha. What does that tell us?
He's in Bukhari, so he must be of a good
He must
standard.
be. He must be good, right? Who narrates from him? Al-Hammadan, right? Hammad ibn Salama and Hammad ibn Zayd, right? Notice how it says Al-Hammadan without even mentioning who they are, because they're so important, right? These people are very important. Right? He narrated from Shahid ibn Hawshab, so khalas, we know it's not a problem. Okay? Okay, so now let's look at more detail. If he's in Bukhari, he must be amazing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's have a look, more detail. قال الدوري, right? So we have this book. This book exists. We have it. It's printed today, right? What's it called? I can't remember. The book is called by Yahya ibn Ma'in. Tarikh Yahya ibn Ma'in, Riwayat ad-Duri. Right? There's ad-Duri and there's ad-Darimi, as in ad-Darimi, the author of Sunan ad-Darimi. Right? What does he say? What does Yahya ibn Ma'in say?
Nice of Bukhari.
ليس بالقوي. Right? Sorry, the focus isn't very good. ليس بالقوي. He's not that good. قال أبو حاتم شيخ مضطرب الحديث. Problematic. ذكر الابن ذكره ابن حبان في الثقات وقال هو الذي يقال له صاحب السابري. So Ibn Hibban mentions in ثقات again. Ibn Hibban, his standard is very low, from one point of view at least. قال ابن عدي له أحاديث قليلة وأرجو أنه لا بأس به. Right, this is Ibn Adi in the Kamil الضعفاء. Inshallah he's okay. وروى له البخاري مقرونا بغيره في الصحيح. Notice, right? So if he's in Bukhari, what, مقرونا or not مقرونا? Meaning he is not independently being relied on in Bukhari. He is there, you'll find him in a chain of hadith, but he's there next to somebody else. So and so and so and so. Both narrate from the Sheikh. Oh, okay. So therefore he's not even using him. So you say he's in Bukhari, what do you mean he's in Bukhari? Right? Like he's right. Same thing with Imam Muslim. رواله مقرونا. Oh, or رواله في المتابعات. Oh, I didn't see that. Right? He's just there as a backup. He's there as a backup evidence. He's not there to prove anything. Right? So he's not really Bukhari material, is he? So the best thing we have is so he's in Thiqat of Ibn Hibban. He Ibn Adi says, وأرجو أنه لا بأس به. right? On the other hand, Ibn Yahya Ma'in and Abu Hatim, so مضطرب الحديث, right? So he's not saying that he's bad. He's actually telling us there's اضطراب in his hadith. So clearly there's problems in hadith. He narrates hadith in different ways, different times. So there's a problem here. Okay. So more important than actually giving a hukm on the hadith, can we see the room for pluralism in this one segment of this in research? So I'm trying to find out al-udhunani min al-ras. Do I need to wipe my ears while making wudu? Yes or no? Did the Messenger of Allah explain the verse of the Quran, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, meaning wipe the heads, including the ears? Yes or no? Right? And so you are giving a class, inshallah ta'ala, on pluralism in Islam. Why can we look at things in more than one way? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ is great. This hadith is also great. Like, oh yeah, could you say this hadith is sahih? Yes. Ibn Hibban mentioned him in the Thiqat, and Ibn Adi said, inshallah, he's okay. Right? And he's found in Bukhari. Or, no, he's not, it's not Sahih. Why? Yahya Ma'in said he's not that reliable. Right? And Abu Hatim said, Shaykhun Muttarib al-Hadith. So he's aware of other narrations that he has, and he makes mistakes. He narrates hadith in different ways. So, khalas, not gonna rely on him. So I could say yes, and I could say no. Okay, what's the answer then? Oh, good point. What is the actual answer? I don't know. Some people say this, some people say that. So I can see now why there will be more than one answer. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so now what do we have for the other narrators? You found them in Tahdhib, Aban?
Yes, Sidi.
Okay, Bismillah. So what do we have for uh, you were looking up who are you looking up? Shahid ibn Hawshab?
Yes, Sidi.
What was the one we just had? Do we lose it?
What, Sidi?
So I'm just trying to find the whiteboard that I just had.
Okay.
Odd. Restore. Okay, I don't know what happened. It's disappeared. Okay, so anyway, we had Hamad ibn Zaid from Sinan. No, yeah, from Sinan ibn Rabi'a, from Shahr ibn Hawshab, from Abi Umama al-Bahili marfu'an. Okay, go ahead. So um, what do we have for Shahr ibn Hawshab?
1 second, Sidi. I'm just staying. Just give me 2 minutes.
Okay. Zafar, what did we have for Hamad ibn Zaid?
Hamad ibn Zayd bin Dirham al-Asdi, al-Jahzami, Abu
Okay, so
Ismail al-Basri.
where in the beginning? So where do we find him?
Sorry?
Where do we find him? Like what are the what are the initials put next to his name?
Ain.
Ain,
In all
four
the 6 books.
in the 6 books, Jama'a. So then, okay, 6
Yeah,
books sounds pretty good to me. Okay. In fact,
yeah.
if it just said meme kha or kha meme, it's enough, right? Okay, great. So that presumably he's a thiqa. Good. We just saw before that he does actually narrate from Sinan ibn Rabi'a. So ittisal is on issue. Okay, any criticism of him?
Ibn Mahdi said, Ma raitu alamun min haulai.
Mm-hmm.
And then he mentions Hammad.
Okay.
Ibn Mahdi said, Lam ara ahadun qattu a'lamu bis sunnah.
Mm-hmm.
Abu Hatim said, Qala Ibn Mahdi, Ma ra'aytu bil basrata afqahu min Hammad.
Mm-hmm.
Try to look for criticisms. Yahya Nisaburi said, Ma ra'aytu ahfazu minhu. Ahmad bin Hanbal said, Hammad bin Zaid ahabbu ilayna min Abdul Warith. Yaqub bin Shaybah Hamad bin Zaid athbatu min Ibn Salama. سمعت يحيى يقول لم يكن أحد يكتب عند أيوب إلا حماد.
Mm-hmm.
قال الخليلي ثقة متفق عليه.
Right. متفق عليه. Anything other?
قال والمعتمد في حديث يروي به حماد
Mm-hmm.
ويخالفه غيره.
Look at that last point where it says قلت قال وقال يعقوب بن شيبة. Just before he says قلت just before that, before he says so before he said سمعت يحيى يقول ولم يكن أحد يكتب عند أيوب إلا حماد.
قال ابن أبي هيثم سأل إنسان عبيد الله بن عمر كان حماد.
Just before that,
um,
there's a little thing where he says قلت Ibn Hajar says قلت.
قلت وقال يعقوب بن شيبة حماد بن زيد أثبت من ابن سلمة
Mm-hmm.
وكل
Why is that
ثقة.
important? أثبت من فلان. So he's better than so وكل ثقة, not كل
كل
ثقة.
ثقة.
Just say وكل ثقة, each of them. So Hamad ibn Salama, we're going to see him a lot, and Hamad ibn Zayd, we're going to see him a lot. But one is better than the other. It's important when there is ikhtilaf between the two of them, right? غير أن ابن زيد معروف بأنه يقصر في الأسانيد ويوقف المرفوع كثير الشك بتوقيه. Right? This is important. So it says, however, Ibn Zayd is known for shortening asanid, meaning if the isnad could possibly be longer. For example, the quote is possibly stops at a tabi'in, possibly a sahabi. He is more precautious and he will label it as the words of a tabi'i and not the words of a sahabi, if there's possibility. Imam Malik does the same thing all the time, right? He'll make a hadith as marfu', make it mawquf, just for being precautious. I'm not really sure. Some people noted this as the words of Abu Hurairah, some people as words of Prophet ﷺ. It's safer if I quote Abu Hurairah, because at least Abu Hurairah did say these words, right? بأنه يقصر في الأسانيد ويوقف المرفوع, right? If something is the words of the Prophet ﷺ, and it's possibly not, keep it as mawquf. كثير الشك, he doubts a lot, meaning he's working on it. Whenever there's doubt, he's very careful. بتوقيه, right? كان جليلا لم يكن له كتاب يرجع إليه, he did not have a book. وكان أحيانا يذكر فيرفع الحديث أحيانا ويهاب الحديث ولا يرفعه. Sometimes he wouldn't do that out of being careful. وكان يعد من المتثبتين في أيوب خاصة. He's specifically very, very careful about narrating from أيوب السختياني. حدثني الحارث ابن مسكين عن ابن عيينة قال لربما رأيت الثوري جاثيا بين يدي حماد بن زيد. Sometimes I would see Sufyan al-Thawri sitting on his knees before Hamad ibn Zayd. That's how much respect they had for him. Right? So now if you compare him to the next entry, it says Hamad ibn Salama, it says Khat Mim 4, meaning Imam Bukhari ta'liqan. Right? Imam Bukhari doesn't actually use Hamad ibn Salama. Hamad ibn Salama is a thiqah, but he's not on the level of Hamad ibn Zayd. Right? And notice when they're specifically mentioning as well for Hamad ibn Zayd that he's the best of people, or he's the best in person in so and so. So it's important. Somebody might be really, really good, but when it comes to a particular individual, this person's better. Right? So it's important to understand the granular details, specifics, as opposed to just a general kind of thing. Anyway, so Hamad ibn Zayd, no issue there. So Hamad ibn Zayd, rating from Sinan ibn Rabi'a. 50-50. Rating from Shahr ibn Hawshab, Aban.
Yes. Yes, Siri, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, yeah. So Shahr ibn Hawshab.
Yeah, so the first, so it starts off, so I'll start off with what they've, so from what I could tell, so in the beginning it's a bit, it's the criticisms, then the praise. So I'll start with the criticisms, okay?
Okay, so but first of all,
وقال
where do you
موسى
find him?
I found him in تهذيب التهذيب.
I know, but say in Tahdhib al-Tahdhib, what does it say right next to his name?
Oh, sorry. I think it was in 3 books. Let me just go to the page. Hold on. Yeah, it's in Bukhari Meme Ta'liq. Same thing. Bukhari Ba Kha and then Meme, and it says Shahr. And next to the meme, there's a 4. So it's the same thing, right?
Shahr ibn Hawshab is in Bukhari.
It says, I think Ta'liqan, see, it says Ba Khaf and then Meme after that, and a 4 after that.
Ba, Kha, and then 4.
Meme and then 4.
Yeah, so 4 means he's in the Sunan, okay? Great, so he's in the Sunan. Now, Ba, Kha, I believe means Adab. Bukhari fil Adab. So look, I'm just going to look at the beginning. Pretty sure right in the beginning. So Kha means yeah, so let's look at this right. Yeah. So see how important it is to actually pick up books. I mean, the process. You can sit there and do again a million things, but if you don't actually do that, if you don't actually do these things, specifics, you don't actually really know anything. So we had to look at the hadith, find it, and they're like, oh yeah. So it says, وقد ذكر مؤلف الرفوم. So what he means, what's الرفوم? Maybe the word I don't know. فقال للستة عين وللأربع, right? And also if you look, they didn't do the books, the manuscripts weren't like this. They do it like the Urdu were for. So they don't put the four like that. It's like they write like the Urdu for. Bukhari kha, Muslim, etc. And then look, خط للبخاري في التعاليق خط وفي الأدب المفرد بخ. الأدب المفرد. وفي جزء رفع اليدين يا. So وفي خلق أفعال العباد أخ. وفي جزء قراءة right را. ولمسلم في مقدمة كتابه ميم قاف. ولأبي داود, right? So he's saying, is it in Bukhari? It's in Muslim. Yeah, I found it in Muslim. What, in the Muqaddimah? Yeah. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. ولأبي داود في المرسال مد. وفي القدر قد. We don't have that book anymore, I don't think. وفي الناسخ والمنسوخ خد. وفي كتاب التفرد فا. وفي فضاء الأنصار صد. وفي المسائل لام. وفي مسند مالك كد. وللترمذي في الشمائل تم. وللنسائي في اليوم عمل سي. في مسند مالك كن. So I don't think we have this book either, مسند مالك of النسائي. وفي خصائص علي صاد, I think we do have it. وفي مسند علي عس. ولابن ماجه في التفسير, we definitely don't have that, right? لابن ماجه. And then he mentions other places as well.
So it's almost like a consistent trend. I mean, before we even get to the criticisms, we can say that he's good enough for, like, we can say like Fada'il and Tafsir and
Definitely
all of that.
fada'il, and even so now what, so even in halal haram he's useful, right? This is the whole thing. So is he a hujjah or is he useful, right? So why would you mention him in your book if it's not useful, right? So again, with that principle, يكتب حديثه وينظر فيه, right? Abu Hatim will say this all the time. His hadith should be written down, but they need to be looked at. Okay, so therefore, are they useless? No. Okay, are they useful? They're useful. Are they a hujjah? No. Okay, what do you mean? Is it right or is it wrong? It's like, it's not like that. Okay, what do you mean it's not like that? Right? Is it right or is it wrong? So this is a key thing we have to train people to understand. It's not right or wrong. It's a spectrum. We're looking at a spectrum. So that's where it is. Okay, so why didn't, for example, in Sunan Ibn Majah, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, yes, but Nasa'i, why don't they give a hukm on every single hadith? Sahih, Hasan Da'if, Sahih, Hasan Da'if. Why? It's not like that. What do you mean it's not like that? So yeah, it's just not like that. It's a spectrum. Depending on what you're trying to use for it, depending on the evidence for, depending on the evidence against, depending on how many Sahaba saying yes, how many Sahaba saying no. There's many things. So it's just not like that. Right? So when you come along and you get in Sunan Nasa'i or Sunan Abu Dawood specifically, Sahih Sunan Abu Dawood, you have you're playing with the methodology of the book. The book is not written like that. The book is intentionally including Sahih, Hasan, borderline, slightly weak hadiths, right? And here and there, very weak hadiths. But otherwise, generally speaking, that those hadiths are kind of somewhat on the line. It is useful, it's possibly correct, etc. Right? If you remember from Ibn Manda's, was it Ibn Manda? Shurut al-A'imma, right? Where he mentions that Nasa'i and Abu Dawood, right? They will mention a hadith of narrators upon whom there is no agreement among the people of his town that he's weak, right? So we're not saying that he's good. What we're saying is the people of his town. So he's from Balkh, and the people of Balkh disagree whether he's reliable or not. So therefore he's useful. I.e., there are people who know him well and they do vouch for him. That's what it means, right? There are people in Balkh who know him well, they know his hadith well, and they vouch for him. So but that doesn't make him a thiqah. That makes him a thiqah, arguably a thiqah, right? So this is this key thing. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it halal? Is it haram? So I don't know. This is useful in, right, fiqh, in terms of just understanding how fiqh works. And it's useful in our taqwa, right? Like, I don't know. Is it halal to live in America? I don't know. Right? Is this meat halal? I don't know. Is your prayer valid? I don't know. Right? So this is wara, right? This is where wara comes in. So there's for the awam, this is useful information, because how is there different answers? So it's not that complex, not that simple. You just show me the Sahih Hadith. That doesn't make any sense. Just show me the Sahih Hadith. When you say just show me the Sahih Hadith, they think the Hadith are born Sahih, right? It's just not like that. A CT scan, it's not always that clear. It's not always that perfect. It doesn't always show exactly what you want to see. It's just not like that. The information is just not that clear. Or MRI scan or whatever it is.
Siddhi, if I may, I just have a question here.
So no.
Yeah. So the same information which you said, like sometimes while conveying it to, I mean, what I've noticed in my experience sometimes is that of the Dawa scene, people sort of present Islam as this, like everything from day one was crystal clear, and as a pedagogy, that's why we're superior uh, to the other religion and so on and so forth. And they sort of mix up like the Tawatur nature of the Quran with the Hadith. So the thing is, for many people, I mean, I in the sense, many people who I have interacted with, like relatives and so on, in their minds, if we go about this conversation, it sort of, uh, I mean, how do you go about it while conveying the robustness of the tradition? Because if so, when we say things like this, because in their minds, in general, I think just because of the hardcore like selfie propaganda online and so on, in their minds, it's that the prophet did it, and then if we go into these nitty gritties, like I mean, they're not able to digest it,
Yeah,
and
it's hard. So you have basically like three categories of people. Okay, like intelligent people, you can talk about them with these things, right? Intelligent and religious, right? You can talk about that with these things, and that's not a problem. Somewhat intelligent and somewhat religious, borderline, right? Unintelligent, not useful. You explain this whole thing to them. You show them what you're doing, and so the crystal clearness is there and was there. Is that in the minds of the Sahaba there is a difference between a dalil al-qat'i and a dalil al-dhanni, and that was there from the beginning, and it's always there. Okay, so the system has always been in place. So yes, we have that picture. It is crystal clear, meaning it is crystal clearly unclear. That makes sense. Like it was crystal clear to the Sahaba that there are things that are not clear. And that's part of the deen. Now, for the guy on the street, if you're unintelligent or irreligious, it's not useful. Because I don't understand what you just said. That doesn't make any sense to me. It is clearly unclear. How is that clear? How is lack of clarity part of clarity? I don't understand that. For you, it's part of clarity because you're a doctor, right? And you work with lack of clarity. Like it is this blood pressure could be indicative of A, B, and C. And this other test could be indicative of A, B, and C. And now we have eliminate less probability. Now these two are more likely. And then the scan came out. I want to see it again. I need to check with the radiologist. Do you have to do this? You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. And then at the end of the day, you're still playing with probability and you're saying it's this. And you, again, how do you play with a patient? You tell the patient you need to do this, this, this. In reality, might not have to do those things, but all of those things are based on probability, right? It is more likely this, and therefore, as a precaution, they're saying you have to do this. But you phrase it as you have to, as opposed to as a precaution, right? So if when you're dealing with the average Joe, there's no point in it whatsoever. Just people, the average Joe understands, brothers is more under, there's different ways to understand the deen. Let's be inclusive and focus on big pictures, right? Is Islam academically rigorous? Is it practical? Is it merciful, etc. Right? That's for the irreligious and not so intelligent. Intelligent and religious, yeah, of course, you can pull all these things out. It's not a problem. But I mean, I teach this stuff, and a lot of people just don't even understand what you're talking about. If you showed them a diagram of hadith, they still don't understand. They don't understand. They don't understand things, like they don't make connections. They don't see. They're just confused. So they understand clarity or lack of clarity, like you know, and so you have to be very selective what you share with them, right? I think I mentioned last week Abu Dawood said that, right? You have to be or Imam Muslim, one of the two. Abu Dawood, yeah, no, Abu Dawood said that. He said you can't share this with the awam because this is confusing, right? Finding mistakes of Imam Malik, that's not very useful to me, right? I'm Maliki, I live in Morocco, everyone's Maliki, this is fantastic. Don't come and tell me why he might be wrong, right? Unless now there's a social problem in the same this, right? We have to understand that, Imam Malik. So you have to be very careful.
All right. Okay. So it's like
Yeah.
a lot of hikmah and
Did you
analyzing the
see, I mean, did you
situation.
see my video that I just sent the other day about on the free dingle on the community?
No, Siddhi. The one at Zatek, or is
Yeah,
it
the Ibn
the
Qutayba. It's like an 8 minute thing like that, I think, or 10 minutes about Ibn Qutayba.
okay? No,
So if you
I
listen
didn't
to
see. I'll
it,
have a look.
if you listen to it,
Okay.
you'll be like, oh, if you're intelligent, you'll say, aha, this is all devil's advocate. This is a miss. So I'm talking to people who have who have understanding A in their head, and I'm showing them very carefully that A is not right, but B is correct. Now, what if I don't have A or B in my head? I have no idea what's going on. I'm just confused. So I'm playing this game right now. Like, what's my audience exactly? Right? And it's very hard to. Yeah, and I'm using rhetoric, and I'm using, you know, how can I phrase something like, huh? So if you watch the whole thing, but the thing is, I'm just getting more into social media as well. Like people think like social media, right? That is. So social media is a very good way of actually looking at how people think. It's not just social media is dumb. It's like that is actually how people think, right? People think like social media, so they listen to you for about 10 to 15 seconds, right? That's what they do. They, so when I talk for an hour, it's not particularly useful for 99% of people. I remember it doesn't, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin doesn't exist anymore. But basically, England went to war in Iraq based on like half-naked women. That's the logic. So in England, we have a newspaper called The Sun, owned by Rupert Murdoch, right? Who also runs Fox News and other things. And the newspaper, this is like the most important newspaper in England. It's called The Sun at the time. And what it works is basically on the front page, there's a title that's really, really big, 3 words. And then you turn the front page, and then obviously the second page is on the other side of page one. And on the third page of The Sun is a half-naked woman. Every single morning, a half-naked woman. So everyone goes and buys The Sun. Who are you going to see? Right? So that's the logic. The logic is like sexual gratification. That's what it is. The logic is, of course, the statement that I just saw was right because it coincides with, so that's how things actually work, right? So people see, for example, oh look, Habib so and so, Habib Omar, he's smiling. Deen is nice. That's it. You know?
See, just a small follow-up question. So when you do, I'm sure so when you share like a basic fiqh ruling, right? And people ask you what's the proof, like how do you go about it? Because I mean, some of the teachers, like I mean, with who I I mean, they sort of were telling us that they don't like it when students come to them and ask them, because traditionally going into the Dalil of basic fiqh ruling was a very advanced thing, and it's like they're not fans of it. But in our context, people do ask, right? So because it's like a
Yeah,
multi-pluralistic thing.
so
So
and
how?
sometimes it is actually useful, right? So there is a bit of somewhat of a hyperbole, right? When you say that, what's the proof, right? So the best way to say is, so like, oh, in the Maliki fiqh, what's Maliki fiqh, right? You say in the Maliki madhab, this is what thousands of scholars have said, and I value that position, and there are other positions too, So using number, I like that. Right, that really clicked. It took me a long time for that to click in my head. I remember, looking at Ibn Hazm, and I was like really impressed by Ibn Hazm. Like I love Ibn Hazm, he's amazing, and like he's not a fool. He's a really intelligent. So I remember like discussing like, well, he said this, and then you see people what people say about him. Like he's an amazing person. He's a huge scholar. So why can't I follow him? If if following is based on the rank of that scholar, why can't I follow him? The answer is not based on the rank. It's based on the numbers. Right? Like the mashhur in the Maliki school, is it ma kathura qailuhu, or is it what is it? Ma fil mudawwana, or is it this, or is it that, right? So you see that ma kathura qailuhu, that's very important. Like how many people said that? So, when you look at how many people built the Maliki school, right? Each generation. So the Maliki school built by the Sahaba and Tabi'in of Medina, built by these people who, you know, built by Muslim Spain, built by the great scholars of Egypt, of Iraq, of Medina, etc. Right? And then all of these people across the generation, they came to the conclusion that you should pray with your hands by your side, right? So therefore, it must be a very strong proof, right? So I don't need to get into the details. I mean, I guess it'll be interesting at some point, but if it's not really possible for all these people to come up to this conclusion, and then you say no, it's wrong, or the Shafi school, for example. Like for me, it does not make any sense. If you're touching your wife, how could it break wudu? Doesn't make any sense. I just can't get my head around it. But they said it. There we go. And this person, this person, this person, this person, and then people who could. Like I only know of three. I only know of three scholars in the Shafi school who ever objected. Right. So people do object, and they can object. But I don't know of three. Right. And there's like thousands of people, right? And you do find in every generation people objecting to things, but they didn't object. So that's actually going to be my today's talk. If you find the link, inshallah, for in Zaytech class, I'm going to talk about what happens after this, because it's like, so the Maliki school, if you understand what happened before Imam Malik, you don't ask Imam Malik, where's the proof, right? Or you understand what happens before Imam Abu Hanifa, you don't need to ask the proof. Like the fact that you are who you are, right? That Ibrahim an-Nakhai is who he is, and Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman is who he is, and Imam Abu Hanifa is who he is. Khalas. Or he is what he is. I don't need to ask the question. Right? So that kind of picture. But what's happened in the last century, or maybe the last 2 centuries, is I don't trust anybody. I don't trust authorities anymore. Right? The nurse might not be a real nurse when I go to the doctor, so I don't know. I don't trust people. The doctor in front of me may not actually be a doctor, so I don't know. I just ask him, and then, you know. So it's the same thing. So you can pick and choose. Sometimes it's interesting to show them the proof if they understand it. And then say, this is what tons and tons and tons of scholars have said, right? And somebody else says something else. You say, oh, that's interesting. How many thousand scholars have said that, right? This is the clearest, easiest proof against Salafis, right? That's interesting. If you're pregnant, you don't have to fast, and you don't have to make it up. Interesting. How many people said that? Oh, Ishaq ibn Rahway, mashallah. Who else? Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen or so and so. Oh, mashallah. Who else? Oh, Sheikh so and so bin Baz. Okay, you got 4, 5, 6. Give me 10. You don't have 1,000, do you? You don't have 10,000. Okay. Jazakum khair. Right. End of conversation. So that's the rhetoric that I try and get to. Number one, there's more than one way of understanding things, right? So pushing people into a square thing, like you have to be Hanafi, right? It's just annoying. It's a real problem, right? It's a real problem, and pushing people into a corner, making people feel bad, and making people feel dumb, or you just like you don't even know anything anyway. Do you know Arabic? No. Okay, why are you asking a proof then? That's not very useful, right? So we have to use a lot of emotions, and we have to use the simplest logic possible. But for me, that's the simplest logic. That's interesting, but very, very, very few people ever said that. So if you want to follow it, that's up to you. Bismillah. But I don't think it's wise to follow the position of just a few scholars or a few modern scholars. You should follow the position of vast majority of scholars, or at least something that hundreds of scholars have said, right? Hundreds of top-notch scholars. Right? Does that make sense, Aban?
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, shall I stop here? وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So what was our conclusion then? The hadith is 50-50, right? And so it's a hadith we're going to find in the Sunan, and we're going to find it in the in Bukhari Muslim. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.